Hello, Earthlings and Aliens. It's me, Altea, your art buddy, and today I'm going to be talking about classical art training. Basically, why working on all those boring old art techniques like drawing from still lifes and figure drawing will make you a better artist no matter what you make. There's a bit of controversy in the art community about getting this kind of classical art training. I've seen people argue that it's not necessary, especially if you have a cartoony or anime style. A lot of this criticism is also a criticism of art schools, namely all of those classes that they make you take your first few years where you have to draw like hyper-realistic fruit or whatever. It might not be obvious why this kind of art education is going to be useful for you, especially if you're, not drawing hyper-realistic fruit in your day-to-day. But I personally believe that no matter who you are and what kind of art you make, classical art training is worth your time and you don't have to go to art school to get it. Think of it like eating your vegetables. It's an important food group, but of course you can't eat just lettuce. No. I'm going to be drawing the same object 3 different times in order to prove this point. I'll be doing a study of a water bottle once from memory, once from reference photo, and once from a still life. Let's get started. Let's start out with drawing from memory. When you're drawing from memory, what you're really doing is pulling from your visual library. Your visual library is basically your understanding of what things look like. For example, imagine a car. Your memory of what a car looks like is going to be different depending on how closely you work with cars, or how much you draw or study automotive design. Maybe all you've got is a rectangle shape with 4 wheels. Maybe you have a general idea of where a car hood starts and ends. Maybe you can draw a 1974 Ford Mustang perfectly from memory. It all depends on how familiar you are with the subject matter. The main reason why you need to practice classical art skills is to expand this visual library. Your memory is going to be different based on your exposure to different objects. You're likely to forget or omit details if you draw solely from memory. As you can see here, I think I've got the basic shape of the water bottle down and remembered that there's these ridges on the side and that the label is up here. However, my label looks kind of jank, and the shape is more like a Powerade bottle than a water bottle. I want to make perfectly clear that this is not a bad drawing just because it's not accurate. You might want to stylize your drawings, and a simplified or cartoony drawing style won't even bother trying to include lots of details. Even if you're in this boat, I think the next 2 drawing exercises are still worth your time. That's because stylizing is all about deciding which details to omit. And expanding your visual library is going to make your stylized art better because you're consciously making those choices instead of just leaving things out because you don't remember what they look like. One way to expand your visual library and to practice drawing is to draw based on reference photos. It's not the same as drawing from the real thing, but I'll get to those differences later. Reference photos make the biggest impact when you're not familiar with the thing that you're drawing. For example, if you asked me to draw a bike from memory, you're not going to get very much more than this simple shape. While I'm sure that anyone who looks at this would know it's a bike, it's not particularly convincing. So even if you're going to end up simplifying your image, it'll look better if you simplify after having some understanding of what you're doing. You can see right away that the shape I've drawn for this water bottle is much more interesting and accurate than the simple cylinder that I drew for the first one. The reference photo also reminded me that there's more text on the label than just the logo, so I've blocked it out more here. If I was going to do a full render of this, it would make an even bigger impact. However, there's a few issues with drawing exclusively from reference. One is that you're drawing from a pre-flattened image, which means that you might lose some details due to pixelation or shadows, and you can't enhance this image to get any more detail out of it. So you're stuck with what you've got. It might be hard to find reference photos of something at the exact angle you want it at, and you might end up Frankensteining together an image, and this will make your drawings look more stiff since you're operating with less flexibility than if you had a better understanding of what you were drawing. The other issue that you're going to run into is that you're drawing from an image that has already been editorialized. Somebody took this image. It's already gone through a layer of interpretation, and you're not practicing drawing the thing itself, You're practicing drawing the image of that object, if that makes sense. This is especially troubling when you're drawing people, because often what you'll find are stock photos, and stock photos are really staged and strange. If you're just cobbling together your drawing based on different stock photos, all of your characters are going to look more wooden and less convincing than if you took the time to study how people actually look when they're excited, not like this. I'm not saying that reference photos are bad or that you shouldn't use them. You should. You can't always get access to the thing that you're trying to draw. And you get the most out of reference photos when you use them to study something rather than just replicating the image. That way you're still expanding your visual library. The best way that you can expand your visual library is by drawing from life. But why should you draw from life instead of just relying on reference photos? For one, you're more likely to catch details that you wouldn't have otherwise, as smaller details will get muddied by pixelation and shadows. You can control the angle of the object, and you can get used to drawing it at different angles. This will expand your familiarity with that object and actually make it less likely that you'll need reference photos in the future. You'll be able to use reference photos just for very specific details, like if I wanted this label to look like a specific brand, but I wouldn't need to find a reference photo at the exact angle that I need that object for. You'll also be able to see the object in different lighting, which can help you get more accurate highlights and shadows. Usually, stock photos and product photos are taken with a really bright front-facing light, which can flatten the image and is rarely how things look in real life. With enough practice, this will help you make your objects feel more grounded, like they're actually sitting there in space. You can see that I had a better grasp here on the ridges of the bottle and how the shadows work there, and I finally figured out how to make it clear that the bottle has water in it. I also saw that the bottom of the bottle has ridges too, and even though my rendition of it isn't entirely accurate, it's still a detail that I missed. I'll be making a video soon on figure drawing and why it's the best way to practice people. All of the same things apply there as well. You're working on expanding your visual library and seeing the human body in a way that you simply can't get by studying anatomy in a textbook. How much of this kind of classical art training do you do? I certainly don't do enough of it. What are some things that you'd like to practice drawing? Would you be interested in watching more of these practice videos? Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in more tutorial videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. If you're interested in behind-the-scenes updates, full process photos, sketchbook tour PDFs, and participating in polls about what kind of content I'll be making next, consider supporting me on Patreon. I have a $1 tier, and anything that you have will help me out a lot. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Illy, bye!